Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Piera and today I'm going to talk about why we need a new adult genre. So if you're wondering why the new setup, I've mentioned it earlier, I'm in the process of moving house and I haven't set up my new filming area yet, but I wanted to get out some content, so here we are. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about new adult. In the world of things, right? You have YA and you have adult, and there is no middle ground, apparently, essentially, sometimes. When we think of YA, we think of teenage protagonists, right? So you've got your like 13 to technically 19-year-old protagonist story. You've got YA contemporary, you've got YA fantasy, you've got 100 billion other things relating to YA, right? And when I started reading, I mean, I was reading forever, but when I started like properly reading, I was like 17, I was like 15, 14 to 16. And so I very much was in that YA genre. I could see a lot of characters going through things, apart from the fantasy stuff, a lot of characters that I could relate to, situations that I could relate to. And as I've gotten older, all that really seems to be out there for me is college romances, and that's just not my thing. On the other end of that, we have adult, which is 20 plus. Boring. Oh, don't kill me. But like, you know what I mean? When you think of adult, you think of like, fucking, I don't know, Stephen King, Jodi Picoult, fuck it, you know, like essentially fiction that I don't read. Like, let's be real, we're talking fantasy here. Pretty much all of the shit I'm gonna say now is fantasy related because it's kind of all I read. And also take it with a grain of salt. Like, this is just my personal opinion and feelings. I could be wrong, I'm probably wrong, let's be real. You might not agree with me. Also fine, you are entitled to your opinion. This is not a disclaimer because we are adults and we are past disclaimers. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Let's keep going. Big example of this, there are a few YA books that aren't fucking YA, but they're written by primarily YA authors, and so therefore there's all this, whether it's on the publishing side, whether it's people who don't know better promoting it, whether it's just the way it's been promoted. So big examples. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, Nevernight by J. Kristoff are two off the top of my head that I can think of that have been most talked about in This Is Not YA recently, much like A Darker Shade of Magic. V. Schwab's another one. So these books may follow teenage protagonists, and by that I mean like me is 16, I forget how old Alex is in Ninth House, and Darker Shade of Magic, Kel and Lila are like, oh fuck, like 17 to 18, 16 to 18, 19, I don't know, like the older end of YA, essentially. And because J. Kristoff, Leigh Bardugo, and V. Schwab are all very prominent young adult authors, a lot of people, a lot of bookshops, a lot of publishers will tend to pin that or assume that this book is also YA, or that it can be for YA. Is there people to blame for that miscommunication? Maybe. Do I personally know who the fuck they are? Not a clue. But that it's such a personal, reading is such a personal thing, essentially. Am I wrong? Maybe. So Nevernight, for example, written by a primarily YA author about a 16-year-old girl going to a school trope, which is essentially all of the things you would assume are YA, young adult. But then you read Nevernight and it opens with a murder and a sex scene, a very visual, graphic murder and sex scene. And instantly you go, children should not be reading. Well, look, fuck, I was a child, I was reading shit like that. Do you, baby, whatever you think. It's not YA. Darker Shade of Magic, I struggled with a little more because I thought it was YA for the longest time because there wasn't anything in there that gave me the impression that it wasn't. When I think of adult, I think of more graphic writing, whether that's a sex scene, whether that's the violence, whether that is the content, whether that is the language in the book. I tend to think of adult as more, like off the top of my head, I'm thinking like Name of the Wind. Like you don't get that confused as a YA book, even though I'm pretty sure Kavoth is actually like 17 or 18. You don't see that as a YA book. The Wheel of Time, you don't see that as a YA book. What else? Mark Lawrence's books. Nona is 8 when we start Red Sister, but that's not a YA book. But you don't confuse that with adult and YA because none of those authors, off the top of my head, have written young adult books. What I was getting at is there's these weird blurred lines between some books, right? Where they have a younger protagonist doing adult things, or you've got an adult doing young things, which is less of a thing. So where I was getting at was when I started reading, I was in the YA genre. YA was written for me, I could understand YA, it was marketed towards me as a teenager. As I hit like 20 and 20, still like 20 to 23, I was still reading primarily YA fantasy, which was fine. And I don't think I was, whether it's just I'm mature, like I'm immature in the brain, it was still making a lot of sense to me. I was still able to connect with a lot of these characters doing a lot of these things. And obviously there is that difference between like an American reader to an Australian reader to an international reader somewhere else in the world. American contemporary YA books I didn't relate to because of like the high school setting or something weird like that. Like not every book is going to be tailored to you perfectly, that's a given. But there was still a lot of YA books that I could understand with. And then at that time, I think there was a book Twitter discourse going on about how YA isn't written for adults, which is true. And therefore you don't have your opinion isn't valid as an adult if you're reading YA, which rubbed me the wrong way because it's not like you hit a certain age and just have to stop reading YA, but that's not my problem. My problem is we need a new adult genre that's like actually a real genre that's not just like it's YA, but it's adult, but it's like I want to go to a bookshop and have new adult written somewhere, which is essentially like fucking 18 to like 27-year-old protagonists doing things, whether it's your stupid college romance, which is a thing, whatever, whether it's early pregnancy, marriage, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever, like whatever. I want to see people my age doing things. Essentially, I want to see people my age going on fantasy quests. Like fuck literally everything else. My point is, I want to see protagonists who are 26 years of age fucking doing magical things and having magical things happen to them. Like a lot of my problem with YA now is the romance side for me. And that's because I'm not a 16-year-old girl fawning over a boy. Like that's fine. It's, you know, I have been in a solid relationship with a man for 18 years. Oh my God. For 8 years. I am a bisexual woman in a heterosexual relationship. So like I want to see more of that in books, and especially like, let's be real, I'm talking about primarily fantasy settings here. I don't give a fuck about anything else. I want to see that. Like Nevernight, you can age up. Technically, you could age Mia up. Mia could be like 18, maybe 20. The school itself could be like a secondary university sort of thing. Like it's fucking fantasy. It could be anything. You don't have to be 60. And like when you think about Nevernight, and I use Nevernight because it's a perfect example, not because I love it, but nowhere in the book does her age really have anything to do with anything. Like she had sex for the first time at 16, but it was so I think I was 16 when I had sex for the first time, but it's so glossed over that it's not like you have to be 16 to enter the Red Church. Like you could be older. Like there's all these things that I want to know answers to. But I think there needs to be like a strong push for new adult genres. And realistically, a lot of us earlier generation booktubers, I guess, well, you know, we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years. We're all in like our mid to late 20s now. Most of us, like most of us. And a lot of us still read YA and enjoy YA, and that's fine. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels kind of like I'm in the wrong space now. Like I started in this space and the space kind of outgrew me as I aged, and I tried really hard to hold on to the space, and I'm like, please don't let me go. And it was kind of like, move on, like grow up, essentially, like my mother. But you know, and now I feel like adult, all I have in adult a lot of the time is shitty college romance stories or fucking 50 Shades of Grey. I'm reading the wrong thing. Like, clearly I haven't looked really deeply into anything other than adult fantasy, because that's all I care about is adult fantasy. So if I have to say it again, I'm gonna punch myself in the throat. Even the adult fantasy that I do read, I fucking love it. Like there's some adult fantasy in there like that I don't read as much as I used to because the books are so much bigger and thicker. Like I used to read, I think I've got a wrap up from like 4 years ago where I read like 13 books in a month. 13 books in a month. Who does that? Who can still do, and like not graphic novels either, like actual YA books that had like 400 pages in them. Maybe 300, I don't know. But like now, I'll be lucky to finish 3 books a month because all of my adult fiction books are like fucking 500 plus pages. And that's not being like, I'm so good at reading books, but like there's more in them. And I know with a lot of YA that I've read recently that I've enjoyed, I've always gone, I'd like it more if there was more to it. Like I read Serpent and Dove recently, and I'm like, I would have loved that book so much more if it was longer and therefore went deeper into relationships, into plot points, into other things. And so I want, and this is like a little bit of privilege, it's a lot of privilege. There's privilege to saying I don't see myself in books anymore because I am, you know, a stereotypically white young woman. And so I mean, realistically, that's what a lot of protagonists are. Not so much these days, which is good. I can say that, and now am I ageist? Maybe? Now I'm just saying, I want to see a 26-year-old. Like, when you think of 26 in books, Like, that's old. Like, I remember, what was I reading? Like, The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. Like, Ruby was 16, Liam was 17, and I think Cole was like 19, 20. And I remember being like, that's so old. Like, he's the older brother. Like, and 26, you're basically like a fucking ancient. You're pretty much deceased. Like, you're old. Like, I remember fucking reading Golden Sun for the first time when Darrow was, I don't know, 17, 18. He would have been like 19, 20. And Victra is 27. And I remember thinking, God, she's so fucking old. And then 2 years later, here I am, almost 27. And I'm like, oh my God, Victra's like the last character left that I can kind of cling to. Is it weird? Is it just me? Like, am I the only one having these, like, surely I cannot be the only one having these feelings. And they don't have to be the same sort of feelings. Like, if your genre is romance and you want to see more 26-year-olds being in romance relationships, or the bisexual romances, ace romances, non-romances, like literally anything, like what do you think? I'm losing my mind here. I'm also sweating. This room has no ventilation. Bitch, let's just calm down. That's my point. My point was, I just want more fantasy where it's a woman and she's 26 and she's not married with 50 kids. She's not tied down by a full-time job. Like, she's just out there in the world to kick ass and take names without falling in love with a 16-year-old boy with fucking bushy brown hair and green eyes the color of sea shit. I don't care. Do I love a good romance? For sure. Like, add me in a fucking romance, but don't make the be all and end all the romance. Don't have this character who has, like, literally to save the world, like the world and everyone in it will die if you don't complete this mission. Go, I'm doing it all for you, boyfriend I just met 3 days ago under mysterious circumstances. Like, priorities, honey. Get your priorities straight. And look, to be fair, when I was 16, I was probably also a bit of a romantic. Like, I dead inside still, but more inclined to be like warm and fuzzies. Now, 26, I'm old and bitter. So maybe publishers and writers are correct and I'm wrong. Probably not. It's a weird line, but you know what I mean? I'm working myself up. Essentially, what I'm trying to do, without sounding like a fucking wanker, which I've done, is open up a conversation. I never do these sorts of things because honestly, I'm always afraid someone's gonna yell at me, and mentally, I can't handle the yelling most of the time on the internet. Like, let's just have a conversation in person and we can figure it all out. I would like to open the floor up to you guys. Like, if you are, anyone, literally anyone, I'm not even gonna put like fucking limits on it. What do you think about new adult as a genre? Whether it's contemporary, whether it's fantasy, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's mystery, crime, like whatever. Do you think there's a place for it? Does it exist and I've just missed it? Do you think it needs to be a more well-rounded, obvious platform so you don't just go YA adult? Like, there is that weird few years. Look, your 20s are fucking weird, mate. Your 20s are weird. Like, you think when you're 16, you're like, oh, at 23, I'll be so old. I'll have my life together. Bitch, I did not have my life together at 23. 3 years later, I am still fucking confused as to why I get out of bed in the morning. So, you know, I just want to, maybe, and then here I am thinking, oh, I'll have it together at 30. I'm pretty sure there's probably a 30-year-old out there who's like, bitch, I do not have it together. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, no matter how old you are. Well, I mean, like, look, roughly you would be in the same bracket. No matter your gender, no matter your race, no matter your appearance, no matter your star sign, or whether you're a cat or a dog person. Like, just let me know. Like, I just want to know if you're a publisher, if you're an author, like what is going on in the world? I need a nap. I've worked myself up. I need a nap. Anyway, this is something that's been on my mind for a long time and I haven't really understood it enough to be like, here's a video about it. But I just want to open up to you guys and be like, please, in the comments down below, like, make your own videos. Let me know, like, give me your opinions because I want to know, am I alone in the world? Anyway, like I said, I need to go and take a nap. Oh, your 20s suck, but they're also the most empowering time of your life. I'm lying. Okay, anyway. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, or make your own video, or Twitter, or Instagram, or whatever. Just let me know I'm not losing my fucking mind as much as I usually am. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!